Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
And I'm Megan.
And we have a very special guest in our studio today. Please, everybody, welcome Wes. Hi, Wes.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, my God.
We almost kissed.
I know.
I feel like our listeners should know that Charnell and I are sharing a microphone, so we are usually really close, but this is like, I mean, I could lick you right now.
Also, with
This time on purpose.
with as sexy as Wes sounds, I think we should lick each other.
I mean, we might end up doing that. It's 900 number. If you guys would like to call in and pay $10.99 a minute for this.
I'm looking for a retirement gig.
Oh, you found it.
Sex operator?
Yes.
I think we just found your higher calling, my friend.
I feel like you've known that's your higher calling for a while, Wes.
A little while.
You just wanted to use your degree first.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, then the cost of it wasn't wasted. But now it's time to get real fun, I think, because
We have to do our gree-gree.
we will, but we have to explain it to Wes first.
Oh.
He's new here.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Wes,
And nervous, I might add, which is weird.
that is
He
weird.
doesn't sound nervous. He
Okay.
seems like he's in his comfort zone. Two women across the table,
Practically kissing.
his wallet's out.
Yes.
It reminds me I have videos I need to take back.
Yes. Okay.
Show
Wes,
him what we got here.
what I have in my hand, this came to us from a listener that we affectionately call Kangaroo Sack Jason. He is an Aussie listener, and he sent us this genuine kangaroo scrotum sack.
It's made out of a kangaroo scrotum.
Yeah, would you like to stroke
Please
it?
do
Hell yeah, I would.
That's what. Don't be jealous because the kangaroos is very soft.
To be honest, that
This
is
is a
so much
kangaroo.
nicer than my scrotum.
This is a kangaroo that cares about his partner. He has manscaped. Everything is nice and smooth.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it?
I like that a lot.
Right. But inside, then
Well, first, we have the Queen of the Peen.
yep.
The queen of the peen.
So she is our crystal skull,
That's
also
cool.
sent by a listener.
Because she is the queen of all the little crystal penises that were also sent to us by a listener
Oh,
that live in the kangaroo scrotum sack. And you know what we do before each episode, Wes? Is we shake it for good luck.
well, I like that.
We shake the sack. We find that it's empowering to us as women, and we understand now why guys are so excited about them.
Yes.
About scrotums?
Yeah, about shaking it.
And
Oh,
shaking it.
okay.
Yeah,
No,
it's, it's a lot of fucking fun.
There's a lot, yeah.
Now, you stroke those
Okay.
for as long as you'd like. But the other thing
Now,
that
do
we...
I put these back in here?
Now,
Sure do.
sure. I mean, sometimes Charnel gets nervous and she starts lining them up like voodoo princess style along the table when I give her a spooky case. But you
Okay.
do whatever you need to with
So I
them.
need to shake it.
You got it.
Okay.
And then we also had a listener send us raccoon bones.
Yeah, so I just
And-
heard about that.
Yeah. So what did you hear? Do you
Well,
know
so
what these
somebody
are?
at work mentioned that it's a thing to collect raccoon penis bones. I'm like,
Yes.
what?
Yeah. So it's not our thing, but it became our thing.
It did.
We were gifted these very impressive hooked bones, which we learned were the inside of a raccoon's penis, and they do appear to have some type of a stimulator of some kind on the end of them. So we shake the bones.
shake-
Shake those. And I think that prior to being recorded, I mentioned that it looks like it's a built-in come hither motion.
And I think you hit the nail on the head because there's no other explanation for why it would have a hook at the end of it.
That's exactly why
Yeah.
the raccoon G-spot.
Yeah.
Right, which explains why they're such jovial creatures. They're always so happy.
They've never had a bad
The
day.
little trash pandas have never had a bad day.
Yeah, yes. Would you like to introduce why we invited Wes on today?
So, how many times, case-wise, we have dealt with situations where there's just, I mean, Wes, I'm sure you can appreciate this too, some bad law enforcement, bad investigations, really, and that's a lot of what we see. It's super easy to be critical of law enforcement in those cases. We try pretty often then on cases where we've had really great investigation as well. And so to Charnel and I, we said, we need to bring on somebody. Let's bring on a detective. Let's bring on somebody who isn't afraid of either one of us, who is willing to answer some questions that we have, that the public might have about who you are, what draws you into what can only be described as a super thankless field at this point in time.
Very much so.
And kind of just some events in your life. We want people to know law enforcement.
We think that you're going to love Wes's stories and Wes in general. But
He's kind of funny.
A little bit.
yeah,
His moments.
that's why you said, "Oh, not afraid of us. He can hang with us." So
Right.
that's why we had him on. Absolutely, because he gets our humor, and he's one of us guys. So should we start with?
I think we should start at the beginning. It was a warm day. No.
I think I remember.
It was spring.
It was spring.
I think I met your mom once at fireworks and
Yes.
literally said to her, "Oh my God, you weren't hatched."
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Or were you?
No, I was.
She confirmed. She birthed him.
I actually have a mother, and yes.
Tell you don't have to give names here for
Yes.
anonymity purposes if you'd like, but tell us about your early upbringing and kind of were you one of the kids that was like in kindergarten, like I'm going to be a police officer, or were you like I'm going to be a dinosaur?
Rodeo clown.
No, I was going to be Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
As you should have done.
I actually career day dressed up as an archaeologist and I don't know why I had on short shorts, but that's the way I remember it now.
Oh,
So maybe more like a
So your
male
mom was
Dora the
watching
Explorer. I don't know.
Wes the Explorer.
But yeah.
What, by any chance, were you not actually watching Indiana Jones? Was it like one of those like
No, it was legit.
porn versions of
and maybe
Indiana Jones at your mom's house?
For some reason, I remember having on like short khaki shorts and and boots.
And now I just want to call him Dora.
That's a good nickname for the future.
So no, I as a child did not want to be a cop. And not to get into it too much, but I've been training to be a cop since I was like 8 years old.
So he didn't want to be a cop, but you were training for it since you were 8. You're going to have to give more information now.
So
I was like, I don't want to get into it, but now
But
we're
I
making.
think-
But I'm going to leave you on a
Yeah.
cliffhanger. Here, bite at this.
But I think I almost have to because my upbringing was a little rough. My father was a rough man, substance abuse, violent. My mother, awesome. I'd been doing this probably 10 years or so, and a sergeant asked me, he goes, "How come you are so good at taking domestic violence calls?" I said, "Well, I've been taking them since I was 8 years old."
That makes sense.
So that's where that comes from,
Sure.
is that I, from an early age, was the one who especially protected my mother or kept things calm, and kind of was already at that age solving things. So
Are you the middle child?
I am the oldest.
You're the oldest. That's right. And there's 3 boys in your family.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I have a younger brother who's 2.5, Shane, 2.5 years younger than me, and then my youngest brother Trevor is 11 years younger than me.
Okay. Did you have a lot of contact with law enforcement when you were younger?
Actually, no, that's the thing. I mean, we grew up down by Waldron, which I don't know if you know this. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So we think the world is
You don't
flat.
have
Yes.
a stoplight.
We have a blinking light.
You have a blinking light.
Yes.
Okay.
And Waldron, along with a lot of Hillsdale County, thinks that the South won the war. So that's something that we.
The Southern Michigan War.
It's a very interesting.
Somehow,
dynamic.
in one of the northernmost states in the Union, you have a large Confederacy population in
Correct.
Southern Michigan.
Correct.
There. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, very small town. And growing up, I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I grew up in the 70s into the 80s,
Which we talk about a lot on this podcast.
yeah.
How
And
fucked
we
up it
just
was.
never had. There was never cops down there. I mean,
Yeah.
the things that happened between my mother and father were never reported.
Mm-hmm.
No, because you stayed out of people's personal business. What happened in the home stayed in the home.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm playing with the scrotum. by
No,
the way,
and
while
that's
we
a
talk.
comfort thing. So Charnell has said multiple times before, I don't know if you're aware, you haven't listened to, before. I mean, we tell people to grab their comfort items, whatever those may be. And you have a very specific one that you refer to
I do.
often.
I always tell people it's time to grab your comfort dildo.
Okay,
Because
well,
So if yours is the
See?
Mine
kangaroo
is the
set,
scrotum.
yeah, that's
Now
a
you
comfort
understand.
scrotum. We're
It's
fine.
pretty
I feel yes.
tender.
So moving on then from you very graciously sharing your adverse childhood experiences with us then,
Yes.
what happened from high school and then beyond to get you where you are?
So, if you want me to be honest,
Yes,
No, we
do.
want honesty.
So,
So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be
Right,
used against
right,
you in a
right.
court of law. Just make sure that you know that. And we're good.
So the early 90s, so you figure the late 80s into the early 90s when I was becoming, an older teenager and an adult, that was a huge time for the cop movies, the 90s action
Oh,
flicks.
yeah.
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. More importantly,
Die Hard.
Point Break.
Oh my God, I loved it.
yeah.
I just watched the original, which is the best one the other day.
Yeah.
Johnny Montana, Johnny Utah. I don't know why I
Utah.
said Montana. That's
Yeah.
a porno. Johnny
Yeah.
Utah.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know. I was
Oh.
guessing.
Oh.
Wes is like,
I
haven't
have
seen that
I
one.
have
haven't
no
seen that one.
idea.
So Point Break, I went and watched it in the theater, and at the beginning, it's raining. You guys probably know the movie, but it's raining, and he's on the doing firearms training on the range, and he's all wet and shit, and he puts gum in his mouth, and he's like blasting shit, and at the end, the instructor's like, 100% Utah, and he like raises his, thumbs up or some shit. And during that, they're showing the Patrick Swayze character, Bodie, surfing. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Surf?
Well, no.
That's what I
Shoot at surfers. No.
I'm going to be, like this handsome-looking Keanu Reeves dude, which I'm not.
There's always time.
And I would shoot shit in the rain. I would just and so that's kind of part of it. The other part is as I got older, I was not a well-behaved child.
I'm shocked.
Yes.
It is. Strangely, when children are exposed to trauma, they don't always react like the quote-unquote good kids do.
It's weird.
My mother's nickname for me was the instigator.
And it hasn't changed,
When
correct?
you say it like that with the deep voice,
Instigator.
I think that should be your 800 number.
Right.
Also,
handle.
wouldn't you swipe right on
Yeah.
Tinder for the
instigator.
instigator?
No, the one that... The instigator. I can't even get that low.
And then you're gonna have to smoke a good pack.
I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, so that
It
was my
is.
mother's nickname. I couldn't behave. I just like to do bad things. I like to misbehave. I like to break things. And
I would say, what are
Jump-
bad things for you?
Well,
Because
like-
for me, bad things were like I wrote in crayon on the wall.
oh no. I mean, like I love to drive fast. One time when I was a kid,
Hold on. How old are you again?
I'm 50.
Yeah, the statute of limitations run.
Oh
You're
yeah,
good.
no, we're good.
Yeah, he's fine.
So like, for example, one time when I was a kid, I had these dudes that were kind of douchebags that lived around the corner from me. And I hear their car coming, and they go by our mailbox, and they knock it off with a baseball bat. So I get in my mother's, let's say 1977 Buick LeSabre.
Of course it is.
It was a maroon tank. And I got in it, and I drove down to their house, and I ran over their mailbox.
Just took it out.
Just took it out, and then came back and parked like nothing happened.
That's called karma.
And so then the dad comes down and goes, we called him, his name was Verl, and he mumbled, and he's like, so he went, broke my mailbox. And so my mom, and I'm upstairs, I'd already went back upstairs and everything. And I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. And eventually
There's
I
no
got
cameras.
caught. But like I would just randomly, I committed some thefts. There may have been some petty larcenies, some shoplifting, maybe some illegal entries.
And this is all in your early teenage, like
Early
middle
teens.
school.
Yeah.
So you're one of those cops, and again, I'm not meaning to generalize, but you were going to end up on one side of the bars or the other. You can have used your powers for good or evil at that point.
And I joke about it, but it's not really a joke. Long story short, I either had to become a cop or go to prison.
I think you chose wisely.
I think I did
truly.
too.
I also think that it just makes you a better cop that you've been through that and have those experiences so that you empathize more. You can treat your suspects, the people that you're dealing with, the public, with more humanity, more empathy, because you've been in their shoes before, right?
Yep.
But just to touch a little bit how on you were saying childhood trauma and whatnot, why do you think that you made those choices? Did it make you feel in control or powerful, or what was, obviously your frontal lobe not fully developed yet.
He's
Okay.
still working on it.
Yeah,
He's only
still
50.
working on it.
No, I meant that like now.
Oh, okay.
Like obviously your frontal lobe's still not fully developed.
No, plus
because you're a man. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But
we get dumber as we get older, believe it or not.
oh no, we live with
I think
men.
we
We
get-
believe
We
it.
know that.
I think we get easier to deal with because we become kinder and gentler as we get older.
Yes.
Okay.
But we continue to be really dumb.
Yeah. There's a balance. You need women. Women need men.
Yes.
I mean, honestly,
Right.
it's the yin and yang. I hear you. But do you think a reason why you were drawn to that
Yeah, because the only time my brain slows down is when there's complete chaos.
okay.
It's the only
Trauma
time
brain,
things
yeah.
make sense.
Yeah, he does. I think he does have a trauma brain, but again, just we talk about resiliency often too. And I jokingly said, use your power for good instead of evil, but it's a real thing. What I mean from that is that other kids who had the same trauma as you could have gone to prison or led a certain lifestyle and probably have.
Right.
You were resilient enough, or perhaps had at least one or two other people in your life that were supportive that could help lead you in the right direction.
And
your mom.
And my mother, yeah. Most of my good qualities come from my mother. So it was enough of a balance that it works.
As long as it's not that deep voice that comes from your mom.
We will knock each other out at some point here, by the way. We keep moving in at the same time.
The deep voice comes from my father. His was even deeper due to the fact he was a heavy smoker.
Oh.
But, yeah.
Yeah, Wes isn't a smoker. This is just his voice.
This is just my voice.
Wes.
Like I said, I feel like Casey Kasem has lost his job years ago if this guy would have been around.
Oh, man.
So you were actually a relatively good student because you got into a good college.
Yeah, I was smart. I
are
still
smart.
are.
I still am. I was like I wasn't like a 4-pointer, but I was.
Me either.
I was mid 3s to high, depending. I mean,
Yeah.
I did if it was something I was interested in, like the law enforcement stuff. Yeah. I almost flunked a botany class because I thought it was going to be easy.
Well, it's plants and
It's not
science
easy.
with plants. No,
No.
you can't talk to a plant and convince it to do something.
Well,
I've tried.
Yeah, so stuff like that, and I took like a anthropology course, and I sucked at that too.
Really?
Actually, can I tell you a fun fact? IKEA recently did a study that if you tell your plant how stupid and ugly it is, it will die compared to the plants that you tell how great they are.
If I'm telling my plant how stupid and awful I am with it, will it also choose suicide? Because I kill them. They'd all die after I assist them.
It might be you.
I am the Jack Kevorkian of plant care.
You're the problem. Yeah.
I know this about myself.
But yeah, that's a real study that IKEA actually did.
I mean, there's a lot of legal plants these days.
Well, that's true.
Talk to them, tell them they're pretty, and then pick one that's the redheaded stepchild plant and just be like exactly. This is a great experiment.
They did it as an anti-bullying campaign.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would be like, oh, hey, plant, how you doing? You look so awesome. They don't be like, your leaves suck.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's literally what they did. They took one plant
and
they just
treat it like
with shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wes, in the interest of science,
yes.
Can you treat one plant like shit? Treat one plant really sweet, and then the third plant, can you talk like super dirty to it on a regular basis? I want to see what happens.
Which one blossoms?
I'm going to go get some plants.
This one just became an aloe plant.
I'm going to rub it all over my body. Purring at it.
See, I think maybe now I want to try an experiment too.
We all could.
Tell everybody where you went to college.
I went to college at Michigan State.
Go Green.
That's right. I started out at Jackson Community College, which was awesome.
Led him to that on purpose.
I did because he's another Sparty fan. I'm knuckling this guy
Green.
across the table. Go white. Yeah. U of M fan over here. Yes. Does U of M even have a criminal justice program?
I don't think so.
I think if you go to U of M, you intended to be a lawyer, not a law enforcement officer.
You're going to be a defense attorney.
They have awesome medical programs that save everybody's lives.
So does MSU.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
I always say that I have a Michigan State sweatshirt because I went to school there.
Me too.
Most people have a U of M sweatshirt because they shop at Walmart.
Oh. Are you so regretting your decision?
I was going to say I'm a U of M fan because they have saved my husband's life numerous times. So now how do you assholes feel about that?
I feel absolutely terrible.
5 open heart surgeries there.
Wow.
I just feel like he's lucky.
Go.
I mean, he is. He married me.
Yes.
Go blue.
Also. Go gold. Amazing blue. All right. So tell us about Michigan State University then. Did you intend to study criminal justice when you went there, or was that undecided freshman?
Nope. I started right out in law enforcement. So, again, I started at Jackson, first 2 years there, then went to State, and again, always a focus on the criminal justice. So
4 years at MSU then?
2 at Jackson, 2 at MSU.
And finished with your bachelor's degree. And is your degree actually a bachelor's of arts or a bachelor's of science in criminal justice?
Yes, it is a bachelor's of social science with an emphasis on law enforcement or criminal justice.
Great. So you graduate from MSU, and then do you go right out and get your first law enforcement job, or how did that work?
So that was an interesting year. I graduated from college, 1994.
That's when you graduated from college?
That's when I graduated from
college. So you're a titch older than I am.
Yeah. So graduated, got married, started the police academy at Lansing Community College, the Mid-Michigan Police Academy, in August. That ran from August to November. Found out my wife was pregnant in December.
That was baby one?
That was baby number one. So I officially got my first cop job in April of 1995. Started working part-time for Hudson Police Department, and then I started working for part-time for Morency's Police Department.
Okay. So, and you were living in our county, but traveling there to work?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I moved back, for whatever reason, and maybe it's not, some people, Hillsdale. But this is the only place I've ever felt at home.
So you're fine with the small-time cop vibe?
Oh, I love it.
When you started in your law enforcement career, then actually had those first couple of part-time jobs and such, did you have additional aspirations? Like, were you thinking, I want to do this type of thing, I want to study, evidence, or to be a detective, or were you just fine being a beat cop at that point?
I was just fine. I was young. I started copping when I was 23, and I think that I was just kind of enamored with the whole thing, and there wasn't a lot going on in the smaller towns, which was okay because I was kind of learning because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And back then there was no such thing as field training officer programs. And
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, and even with the sheriff's office, I'll go to the sheriff's office, when I first started here, I rode with Dave Meyer, who you guys probably remember. He was a hell of a road cop.
Hell of a detective.
Just a good dude. I rode for him for like 2 weeks, and then the lieutenant, I think he was a sergeant at the time, says, "You ready to be on your own?" And I'm like, I shook my head yes, but inside I'm like, no.
2 weeks.
Yeah, it was only like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm out on my own on second shift. I decided I'd never been to Montgomery, Michigan before. And I drove down, and it was like foggy, and I got scared.
You realized why you'd never been to Montgomery, Michigan before.
It's foggy. He's in a cop car. He's carrying a gun, and he is nervous.
And I'm nervous.
Point this
But
out.
one of my calls in that first 2 weeks, all by myself, and I didn't get there first, but I was en route to a domestic where the suspect had an axe. And I'm like, what in the fuck am I going to do when I get there? It just...
Truly, yeah.
Yeah. So,
is that the first call that scared the shit out of you as a police officer?
Probably. I'd had some other little things. Like I'd been in some pursuits and fights and stuff, but that was the first one where it felt like really real. Like
I can't believe they're letting me do this job. I'm in charge of this.
Yeah, like I'm driving 100 miles an hour. I got a gun, and I'm talking on the radio, and I'm about to deal with a dude with an axe, and I'm like,
how do you deal with a dude with an axe?
Right.
Yeah.
And it turned out well to where I was a second or third officer on scene, and there was a very brief standoff per se where he then put the axe down and was, placed under arrest. But
de-escalated.
Some verbal negotiation, de-escalation
took
place. Were you involved?
That's yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. So not in terms of de-escalation, it was more of a command.
Yeah.
You made a request and he complied. He complied. Was that your request or was that somebody else's request?
I think most cops, for whatever reason, I read this in a book once too, Joseph Wambaugh, I don't know if you've ever did The Onion Field, but he discusses the fact that when cops give verbal commands, you don't necessarily know what they're saying other than it ends with motherfucker.
Okay.
So, and I apologize if I'm using the word motherfucker.
No, and is motherfucker like a verb or noun, or is it just kind of universal? Okay.
Yeah, which, and unbeknownst to me, I think it's not just a law enforcement word. I think it's a military word also.
Oh.
Yeah. My father was a huge fan. One of his favorite phrases was, like, the house could blow up, and he'd look at it and he'd go, well, ain't that a motherfucker?
So, yes.
All the different ways you can use it.
I guess to get back to it, all of my training was on the job, like literally learning it while you were doing it. Mm-hmm. And you learned, so after my brief stint, I only worked like 3 weeks by myself, and then the schedule changed. Then I went to nights, and I'm working with these old dudes. And the cops at that time who were my age now had been, they were military veterans. They were big. They were burly. So
they had their own brand of justice.
Yes, they did. These guys were bone breakers, but
at the same time, these same guys who I happen to know too are also the guys who would be like, okay, I'm on this MIP party. We're just calling everybody's parents so you can go home. Like, they weren't necessarily out to jam people up either. They made right decisions.
Like what I used to do when we go to an MIP, because you don't want to deal with that bullshit. So what you do is you scream into the driveway with every light siren that you can come up with, And then as the kids run into the field, you bark like you go, rah, 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 rah. So they think it's a canine. And you can just, oh, shit.
No, it's great.
Yeah. And you could just hear them fucking running through the corn. So, yeah.
It was so real, it made my dogs bark.
Big dog, bite me.
So, yeah, but no, I mean, like I said, these dudes were bone breakers. Like they would take care of business, but they were also kind and funny and care, and so that's kind of where I learned a lot of my skills was from watching them and being with them on calls. And as I became more confident in my job, I realized that just because you'd been in law enforcement a long time didn't necessarily mean you knew what the hell you were doing. So, so you started to kind of gain your own confidence and take what worked for you and things that didn't, that, you just kind of kept to the side. But very early in my career, I'd been a cop 4 years when I went into dope. I worked for Omni, the multi-jurisdictional
He didn't
team.
do dope.
I didn't. Yeah.
I
didn't do drugs. I was a drug
investigating it.
officer.
A multi-jurisdictional drug team.
Yes, and honestly, that is probably where I learned most of my skills because being undercover and plain clothes allowed you to have to be a cop without all the other fancy stuff. Like you didn't have the uniform, you didn't have the car, you didn't, and so you kind of learned to talk to people more on a natural level. So I learned a lot doing that. So I did.
Did you like working narcotics?
I would have done it my entire career if I could.
That was my next question. So you and I don't know if our listeners know this, but there's a time limit on working as a narcotics enforcement officer. There really is.
Yeah, at the time it was like I think our max was 3 years. And
is that because you gain notoriety in the drug communities, or is it for burnout, or a combination?
Combination. Back then, we did a lot more undercover purchases, so eventually you would get burned, but also the burnout because we worked so multi-jurisdictional, so we worked Hillsdale and Lenawee County. Meth was not a big thing yet. It was mostly crack, especially in Adrian. So it wasn't unusual for us to do 3, 4, 5 search warrants a week where you're kicking in doors and shit. So it's a blast if you have a good crew. I had a great crew to start out. My crew at the end was okay, but my first crew, we were just tight. And it's just a blast. But you eventually get burned out.
So how long did you work in that particular position?
I did that for 2.5 years.
And then after that, you went back to regular
I went back
road
to
patrol.
Yes. The hope was that I was going to go into the detective bureau for many different reasons that didn't work out. So I ended up back on the road.
Now you did end up in another narcotics enforcement team though.
Yes.
When was that about? It was when I was at the prosecutor's office. So was it
when I was
we worked
What?
together.
So-
We all worked together. Yeah. Just so you guys all know that.
For some reason in my head, I want to say like 2010, and I don't know if that's
That might be about right.
Yeah, because I started in 2011.
Okay, so
So, yeah.
yeah,
Right around then.
So my he's my captain now, Kevin. He went in after me, and they actually left him in for 6 years, which was unusual. It's just kind of but it was kind of the way he had come out. We had actually cut our ties with Omni over financial, political,
Contractual
reasons.
issues, money.
issues.
It's always money.
So-
Who doesn't have it to contribute?
Right. So we initially had tried to start our own thing. I was not initially involved. I will not name names, but when I came out of Omni, it was kind of a rough year. We call it the Black Year 2002.
Right.
And I was told by a administrator at the time, again, no names, that I would never, ever, ever, ever see a drug team again.
Oh.
Right.
I mean, and maybe not something to get into today, but
That the person no longer works there.
correct.
But-
It was a rough time. And just
so you know, it's a rough time, but it was also a necessary program. And again, I'm coming at this from a prior prosecutorial perspective. I mean, we enjoyed our drug guys because your case volume was increasing, and not because they were drumming up business at the time. It was because it was out there and there were actually cases coming in.
Yeah.
And you don't have to name names. I mean, the names are what? Rosie, Trigger, Sugar, Drug Kitty. Those are the husband.
Yeah.
Those are the names.
So basically.
Oh, guess which one Drug Kitty is, by the way. That would be this guy.
Yeah.
I
So
figured that he's going to have Kitty.
So I feel like you at least have to tell the story. Let's
Yeah.
entertain the audience.
yeah, there's a
Wes.
story behind that.
I imagine.
So I had, I'm not sure why, on the road, I had ended up with this kitten. Like this old lady called.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
I just ended up with a kitten.
Yeah.
A voice like this, you know there's going to be a...
Right.
Yeah.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty.
So,
Get in the car.
so I end up with this stray kitten that this old lady had or something, and I'm just driving around with it. I don't know why, just to amuse myself. Like, because when I would talk on the radio, it would meow and shit. I was just having a blast. And so I rolled by these dudes who I knew were dopers and shit. And they're like, what's that? I go, that's my drug kitty. They're like, bullshit. I go, no, not bullshit. You probably don't know this, but cats can actually sense drugs better than dogs, right? And I said, and if my kitty meows, that means you have drugs, right? And thank God, I don't remember if I don't know if you can pinch a kitty and it meows.
You can pinch a kitty.
But somehow I was able.
It'll meow.
And also a cat.
I was able to elicit a meow from this cat, and these fucking dudes freak out and run, right? So that's the story there.
Drug kitty.
I eventually, somewhere around that time, I got a call from a supervisor. Said, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm working." Well, what is it I hear on the radio? I said, "That's a cat." Why do you have a cat? And I explained the story. Then they're like, get rid of the fucking cat. So I took it to the shelter. And
I like how you say it. Well, I have a cat. Like it's a total normal thing for you to have a cat.
I'm glad you're an animal lover.
Yes,
And
I love animals.
you helped that cat. It was like a job shadow. Like that cat
Correct.
is going to have a great future
Yeah.
someplace.
The drug kitty.
So that's where Drug Kitty come from.
Can I give you my favorite Wes story from when you were back in the drug team?
Okay.
Circa 2011,
Oh, I think I know where we're going.
2012. We've had so many good times together, Wes. But my favorite is the approximately 3 a.m. out in a trailer in, oh gosh, what does our old supervisor Riley call? Frontier.
Frontier.
That's
Yep.
what she calls it.
We were just
Frontier.
we were just outside of Frontier.
That would be spelled frontier, as in the western frontier, but in Michigan, it's frontier.
It's Frontier.
Frontier. And I was on call, got a complaint that involved drug use, so we have to call in the drug team. And they met me, and Wes is always great because he's one of the police officers that I loved taking with me, because if there was someone nefarious, he would actually step in front of me. Like, hey, I recognize that this person does not have a gun, and I actually am a person with a gun. Yes. Not all the deputies were like that.
No.
Lots of
them, like, they'd send a 90-pound girl up the door, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing,
100%. All the time.
Now, in their defense, it does look like she's selling Girl Scout cookies, so they might not come out shooting.
But yeah.
Right. There were many times where they'd say, well, this is your case.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's their complaint. Yeah, but you're the one with the gun. You're the gun, dumbass.
Right.
So come on.
Right. So, yes, on those cases, I always would look at him and be like, cool, I know how big your penis is. Cool. So I take Wes in. It's about approximately 3 a.m. And didn't she have the needle like in her arm when we walked in? It was.
She was more or less in the process.
Yeah. So they're doing their searching. All right. I'm doing my social working, talking to them about how we're going to have to take these children as they are clearly incapacitated. And all of a sudden, Wes calls me to the back bedroom. And him and his BFF, who he named earlier, are enthralled in what can only be described as a vault. A vault. Because it was the most secure thing in the entire trailer, as a matter of fact, of pornography. Not just any pornography. There was many books and videos on necrophilia.
Yeah, some weird shit.
And we may or may not have glanced while we were searching. I'm not a part of the search team.
You have to make an accurate report.
But yes, I needed my social work notes to be detailed, and they were. They were, let me tell you. That's one of my fondest memories. And then I think it was only like a week later, and I took him out to Cambria and the scary apartments out there, and he was like, Charnell, you always take me to the nicest places.
Oh, yeah, the haunted.
We've got to start going on better dates.
Yes.
The old
that one was
insane,
terrifying.
Yeah, that place is
Oh,
scary.
the asylum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it blew up from the meth lab,
He's not joking.
It really did.
Somebody was using a red pea method, right? And blowed shit up.
It was,
or was it the
a
one
shake and
pot?
bake
Was it a one?
yeah.
Okay.
And they were like in a bathroom. They had towels and shit. So it basically built up a combustible gas. And when he went to burp the bottle, it boom. He burned his throat like he literally had a the outline of a 2-liter bottle on his
his
T-shirt
chest.
that had burned.
And it kind of burns you from the inside out with a meth burn too.
Yeah.
Like you can see it externally, but it's burning from the inside out, like Satan's crawling through your skin, or Sigourney Weaver style
the glass
situation.
in the hallway windows, and we found a piece of glass embedded in the lawn where it had basically spiraled and stuck into the ground about 40 yards
That
away.
is terrifying.
Luckily, nobody got hurt.
Right.
Other than
neighbors, like you wonder why meth
lab.
labs are so dangerous, right? But projectiles were something you might not have thought about.
There's a third floor there that's been locked off for years, and I had always convinced myself that it was haunted. So
You're not wrong.
So the entire time we're out there, they're doing their shit. I would periodically take my light to look, to see if
Wes's
I could.
flashlight was all over the place
Oh yeah,
on that
to
property.
see if they so.
Well, and why were we never there in the daylight? Those calls only
always
ever
at dark.
came in
and
the
you
dark.
would hear shit. You would hear doors creak. You would hear people yelling. You would hear running. It was just weird.
It was wild, man. I hated those.
So you did all this stuff on the drug teams, which we're all familiar with, but I don't want people to I don't want you to gloss over the fact that you also did a ton of child sex crime investigations and forcible rapes. Like you were investigating those, and that was pre you being you weren't a detective at that point.
No,
you
I
were
was
doing
not
this
a
as a field
detective.
officer.
I'm not sure how I ended up with that. Other than
you were good at it.
I was good at it. I had done a brief stint in the detective bureau while one of the other detectives was off with a soldier's shoulder.
Oh, it's so hard to
Words
say.
are hard.
shoulder.
We know.
And they ended up sending me to the child forensic interviewing, and it just turned out I was really good at it. And in our theory, or our department's theory, is, well, we send everybody to the training, then they have to take them. And my theory was, well, some of the guys really suck at it.
Right.
So why do that?
Just because you've been trained at it doesn't mean you should be doing
right.
this.
Just because
I, for example, was trained in law school to do taxes. I took tax law, but I don't fucking do my own. Okay, there's a reason for this. Some of them are because I don't want to go to federal prison.
Most cops, and I would say even male and female, but honestly, not to make it a huge issue, but definitely male cops have a real hard time with female victims. And I think,
You do not.
I do not.
And young child victims also.
Yeah. So and I'll be honest, I feel like I had a real gift for it. And again, does it suck? Oh, it sucks big time. It's horrible. Those are the ones, of a lot of the stuff that I've dealt with, the child sexual cases and abuse are probably the shit that haunts me the most.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think people realize you did a ton of homicide investigation too. We worked on a number of homicides together prior to my current position, and the CSC and the child abuse, the broken baby cases, those are always harder for some reason than the homicides. Do you agree?
Down, I agree. Even now, I'm a member of our of the county's child death investigation team, and even when we investigate those, which 9 times out of 10 are not a criminal act,
they're usually accidents.
They're usually accidents or a medical reason. It just tears you apart. It just tears you apart.
No, I have to agree because I'm the same way. The child death, a lot of it for us in our position is unsafe sleep. It's
Correct.
accidental. Those are easier to understand than dealing with the child sexual abuse.
Yeah.
victims.
And the broken baby cases
the
where you
broken
just
babies,
can't help
yeah.
but want to completely lose your shit on the person who perpetrated that crime. But I've seen you
Explain what you mean by broken baby.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm using lingo, right? So those are your child abuse cases where you literally have an intentional or an act that was so negligent that you're criminally responsible that resulted in a broken bone, bruises, other serious type of injuries to a child, say under the age of 5.
Yeah.
And
Typically, even children that aren't mobile.
Correct.
Often not
or able
mobile.
to, like I had a 4-month-old with a broken leg.
Yeah.
What was a result of the baby not behaving during having its diaper changed.
Right.
And somebody kind of jammed its leg.
Or they apply pressure.
Or they apply pressure.
Yeah.
Broke, skull fractures. And
We've
brain
had
bleeds and-
non-mobile babies who you and I were on that case together as well, where the guy kept trying to say that he had just dropped a remote on his face, and that's what caused all those bruisings and I think a minor skull fracture. And luckily, you testified well and explained what was told to you, because all that comes out, a voluntary confession, what you saw at the scene, but also then the expert saying, oh no, it could have been from a remote if you had dropped it from a 2-story building onto his face.
Yeah.
Like those are the aha moments where we sat there thinking, we've got this nailed.
And it's, and it's difficult because as you guys know from your careers, you're sitting across from, let's be honest, a complete piece of shit. and all you want to do is make them unalive. I mean, let's be honest. And
we're not allowed to.
And we're
we
not
have to
allowed
remain
to.
Professional.
There's so many
and
rules.
act like we give a shit about how their day's going.
And so you have to, you have to be able to not treat them like shit to get what you want, so that you can put them in prison or make them held accountable. So
you know what I found is, twisted as this is, but as a female who looks unintimidating,
I don't have that problem.
No, but you can lay on the sugar a little bit, and you'd be surprised at what men especially will think that they're turning you on by talking about.
You and I have had this happen on multiple occasions. You wouldn't believe what happens even just going into court with some of these people. I'm sure Wes has had.
Judge.
Well, first of all, I happen to know that Wes has had issues with this in the field as well, with women flirting with him while at work or being investigated.
He's very flirtable. I can see why.
I'm not the most, badge bunnies.
Oh.
It's like, oh, thank you, sir. I just appreciate it. And they would touch your arm and.
Oh my God! Don't say that. I touch people when I talk to them. Charnell, what do people think about me?
Yeah, no, but
I
it was
do.
just,
he just has me completely second guessing my entire life. I talk to people I just met and touch their arm, their shoulder. Yeah. I'll cup their hand.
Or hold hand,
right.
Their hand.
But there was those situations.
I think you can feel the difference between, how doctors are taught to do a caring hand on the shoulder.
Yes.
There's a difference between genuine, thank you so much, and thank you so much, sir.
Right.
Stroke. Right. Yeah. You can feel the difference.
I was young because I was still working in Morenci, and I actually, for whatever reason, we caught some kids at an MIP, and this gal, she was attractive.
A mom?
No. She was not 18 or 19.
Oh, okay. And you're only 23.
Right, and I'm writing her the ticket.
Okay, yeah.
I'm writing her the ticket, and she puts her hand on my leg, and she goes, "Is there anything I can do to not get this ticket?"
Oh.
And I was happily married at the time.
Make a good choice.
And
Make
a
a good
complete
choice.
square, and I'm like, "No, ma'am." I mean, I was just serious as a heart attack.
Right.
No, the law's the law. You're getting a minor in possession ticket or some bullshit like that.
It reminds me of the joke. Have you seen the joke where the police officer pulls over the lady and she's all cleavagey and whatever, and he comes over to give her the ticket and she goes, "I thought you didn't give hot women tickets." And he goes,
I don't.
I'm glad you knew the joke.
Yeah. In a lot of
To me,
professions.
that's law enforcement ethics 101.
Yeah, it should be pretty obvious.
Yeah, you have to. We get a lot of bad police work. We get a lot of cases where realistically it's not maybe even bad police work, but it's just that lack of training piece. And you're in a small town, which is real similar to cases that we deal with where we have some ineffective police work, at least from our perspectives.
Right.
And we're very careful about how we characterize it, but it's also pretty obvious. How do you become good at something when you only get 2 homicides a year in a county like this? How?
And the resources are limited.
Yeah. How do you do this? And even if there's nothing formal put together, because I don't think there is, how do you get good at it? Or is this just natural? Do you just get lucky with a good cop?
I think that the bottom line, the basis is someone who's naturally a good cop. Yep. And honestly, it sounds like when people think of a homicide or they think of a sexual assault case, sometimes I think they get overwhelmed just by the mere fact of what it is.
Yes.
Which in reality, it's kind of the same as far as how you investigate it as somebody getting their mailbox smashed or
Right. The steps should be the
same. The steps are always kind of sort of the same. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if you have good skills with someone, let's say, in a child custody agreement, you're a dispute or you're a peace officer standby or a domestic or whatever it is, if you've got good skills in those type of investigations, there's no reason you can't then put those towards more serious investigations.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, and most things, and it's what I always do, because I trained for a long time, was a field training officer. One of the things I would always say is 9 times out of 10, once you get the situation held down, you can slow down and figure out what the hell you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part.
Dealing with victims is super important. And we speak a lot with victims' families on here and even have interviewed them in cases. And the ones that we've interviewed usually have had the same issue where there's been police investigation, and sometimes it's not bad police investigation, Wes, but it's just led a certain way. I mean, there's investigation bias.
Oh, correct.
Right?
Yes, there is. Very much
so. You decide that something's happened, and so those are the things you're going to find. Have you ever had a situation where a victim's family has come to you and said, listen, I understand that the evidence is leading you this way, but can you please consider this other information I have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's happened probably 1,000 times.
And then what happens with it? Like, are you a cop? Are you a police officer who's willing to look into that? Well, I'll say cop, but sometimes some people don't like it. I mean, are you a cop that is willing to look into their?
Yeah, because in especially Charnell from DHS, with like the forensic interview and whatnot, there's always that alternative hypothesis.
Right. We talk about that a lot.
So
explain that though, from your perspective, what the alternative hypothesis seeking is.
So, and especially, I guess if I kind of try to tie it in with victims and victims' families, there's almost always like what actually happened, and then there's some theories of how it could have happened, or maybe that it happened completely different. My thought is, as a law enforcement officer, you don't do your due diligence unless you explore those other avenues.
And we, by policy, are required to.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Unfortunately, again, in law enforcement, especially with sexual abuse cases, you often have victim blaming amongst
often.
officers.
Yeah, we talk about that.
Well, she wanted it.
No.
There's no way. Like, for example, and just the way I talk, I had one where a girl was forced to perform fellatio on two men. And my sergeant at the time's like, you can't force somebody to suck your dick.
Sure you can.
I'm like,
but that's an old timer mentality.
Right.
I'm not even super judgmental of him.
and this dude wasn't old. He was just a fucking idiot. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In the interest of honesty today, we have.
Yeah.
This is why we invited him on, because
Yeah,
we knew he would be honest.
But, and that's something like I used to, that's something that has always irritated the living piss out of me. Well, she wanted it. She's just reporting it like.
Oh, this isn't going to be a good case because it might have been a consensual thing to start off with?
Yeah. But again, I've had them where I've been able to prove this. Yeah, it started out consensual, then it went sideways.
Right.
But most people are like, she wanted it.
Okay.
So, no. So
Do you think they're training police officers different now?
Oh, God.
What a loaded question, right?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Yes, I think they are.
I think they are in bigger cities where they have more resources.
Yeah, I think that because of things, which I totally agree with, because of some of the bad policing, agencies with the ability to train or educate better are doing that, which is awesome. In rural law enforcement, I'll be honest, I think in most cases, because of budgetary issues, you're going to have officers that are naturally good at it. Yeah. And you're not going to have the ability to train guys that maybe suck at it, but at least if you gave them the training, they could half-ass it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does, because it points to the bigger problem of the budgeting.
Yes.
Is the bigger problem. And hopefully the people that are naturally good at it, the people who suck at it, can learn from the people who are good at it, as long as their ego doesn't get in the way.
And in bigger places too, let's take a Jackson, maybe not big, but bigger than we are. You can be an aggressive street cop. You take a sexual assault. You basically go in, you get the information, and you leave. And then it goes to somebody who that's what
it goes to
do.
the DB, the Detectives Bureau's coming.
Whereas, in rural law enforcement, honestly, you might get a criminal sexual conduct, and you can literally run the whole thing yourself without ever involving a detective.
Right.
If you're good at it, and then that's great, but. You're required to not just take the report. There's a lot after that when you work for a smaller agency.
You ever been shot at?
One time. It was kind of a loose, I guess. We had dealt with a dude over a child custody thing, and then we had left, and then he called in a suicidal, and when we staged to go in, he winged off a few rounds with a .22. Nobody got hurt or anything, but...
Enough to make you a little nervous.
Yeah, it was, I
think that people often think that police get shot at all the time.
It's not
in rural areas that sometimes could only happen once in your career, right?
Yeah, that's
I think, Wes, that people forget that there's other far more serious things that can happen when you're working in law enforcement, and this is where I'm just going to segue into. You had something pretty serious happen to you while you were at work. that kind of led to where we are now, which I want to follow up on us. But you had something pretty significant happen to you at work. You've had a lot of number of close calls.
Yeah, I've had a lot. Yeah,
but this was a closer call than most.
Yes. August 28th, 2019, I was involved in a horrible accident while on duty. I guess I'll just tell it.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
So situation
also,
was...
we're available for trauma therapy and hugs after.
So for the record, before we get started, I am comfortable with all of it. I mean, I talk quite openly about it. My family is quite aware of and friends are aware of the issues I deal with and all that. So I am very open and honest about the situation and what occurred and how it affected and continues to affect me. That night, it was about 7 o'clock at night. It was a gorgeous summer day.
I remember exactly where I was. I was at the local high school watching one of my kids play in a football game and heard all of the sirens.
Okay.
It was a beautiful
It was.
night.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember too.
It was about.
This is the where were you when the thing happened to
Yeah.
Wes thing? Anybody who knew him
And the
was,
thing is,
and
like,
was friends with him.
there's people that said, "Oh, I was at the store." Or somebody was at, like you say, there was a couple people that were at school functions.
And news spread fast. We knew before the end of
Yeah.
that football game that it was you.
A buddy of mine got the call, and he was coming back from, I think, military reserve training, and he actually got stopped by the Michigan State Police. Who then I was in Fort Wayne at the hospital. They actually lights and sirens provided him an escort all the way to the hospital.
that's
to the border or all the way down
all
to
the way
Fort
down
Wayne?
to the
Wow.
hospital.
Wow.
They tried to pick up with Indiana State Police, but they didn't have anybody, so the state trooper Michigan just ran him all the way down there.
Wow.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
pretty fucking cool. So,
Yeah.
so basically, it's 7 o'clock at night, sunnier in hell, just a beautiful evening. And what's funny was a couple of the people that I work with, who were husband and wife, had asked they were going to do something special for the people that work second shift. They're like, "Hey, listen, we're going to make street tacos at our house. Anybody that's available, come, and we're going to make lunch or supper for you." So at the time, my wife had just started a job working third shift and at the youth home. I called her and I said, "Hey, you want to go over and cook tacos?" She goes, "I don't know. I'm kind of sleepy. I might take a nap." She's like, "You know what? I need to eat. I'll do that." She says, "But I'm kind of tired. Will you go to Checker Records and grab me a whatever it was, spiced
The
chai
best
tea?"
coffee in the world.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Yeah." So we drove over there. So at the time, I guess I should explain, I was training another officer in field training. She'd been a cop for 2.5 months, not very long. So she's driving, I'm the passenger. So we go and get the coffee, and we drive back. And I remember we pulled into their driveway, and their children came on, like, "What are you doing here?" And it's like, "Well, we're gonna eat, lunch, dinner with you guys." And about that time, the call comes in for a verbal domestic. Just husband and wife, they were arguing. She wanted to leave, and he was being an asshole and standing behind her car. Nothing major.
Nothing more than what he's used to.
I mean, yeah.
See, when we start those stories, they usually end with somebody dies.
Yeah,
so,
no, yeah. So
for him, they're nothing major.
Well, and it almost did, but
right. But right.
So
not who you would have anticipated.
Yeah, so I remember I handed my wife's coffee to the little boy and said, "Hey, listen, put this in the fridge for my wife." He's like, "Well, who's your wife?" I said, "It's none of your business. Just put a coffee in there, And I said, "Tell your mom and dad we got to go." So they went in, and so we leave, and we're going, I guess to put it into perspective, we're not driving lights and sirens. And that was a big thing at the time. All these dumbasses online. "Well, if he was field training officer, how come he didn't just reach over and put it in park?" Are you fucking kidding me? So, I mean, just dumb shit
Have
like
you
that.
been a passenger in a car before?
So, just dumb shit like that. But I very much want to clarify that we were just driving like normal people, 55 miles an hour. We're headed westbound right into the sun. And there was a vehicle with a big trailer pulling out. So we kind of slowed down, went around that, started to speed back up. And about that time, my trainee asked me a question about the complaint. And so to put it into perspective, at the time, we've now changed the policy, obviously. But at the time, the computers could be moved so they could be directly in front of the passenger, with the understanding that, like, we ran a two-man night cruise, that that guy could be over there doing shit on the computer and stuff while the other person's driving.
Sure.
So I had just pulled it over, and I had opened up the lid. Is that what you call it? Lid? Screen. It's screen to look at it. And I looked down, and I heard her go, "Oh, fuck." And I looked up, and I saw a flash, and then wha-bam. Now, the funny thing is, and I know you've probably heard this before, I didn't hear a fucking thing. They say that when you're in an accident, you don't hear shit. I do not remember anything audio until the vehicle came to rest.
Okay.
So
that's an instant brain trauma right there. That's just, you've been hit so hard, you actually are losing the senses, and it's not until you quote unquote come to.
What happened?
You didn't lose consciousness at that point, though, right? Or
No,
do they not know?
I do.
You
not.
lost audio.
I lost audio for a very brief.
So in movies, when this happens, you see this in scenes in movies, and
Yes.
it's total silence while
you
stuff happens.
You don't hear a damn thing.
Interesting.
It is weird as shit.
Okay.
I saw a flash of light. Actually, it would have been coming south, going northbound from the south. I saw a flash of light. To me, at the time, I remember it being a white. I believe her van was silver, but so long story short, what happened was, unfortunately, my trainee, because of the sun, because of the situation, missed the stop sign at an intersection. Mm-hmm. And it was a relatively, for us, rural but busy intersection, South Hillsdale Road in Bear Lake. And so as she went through the intersection, we T-boned another vehicle. So unfortunately, that's where the story of the computer comes into play, is that the fact that I had it where I had it, when we struck the other vehicle, I went down, and basically just above my nose is where I struck the top of the laptop, the MDT. So that's what caused. So I guess I'll just keep rambling. Is that working?
Please do.
Yeah, keep rambling. Like, what happens now? I mean, you want me to forensically interview you?
No. Yeah.
What happened next?
Tell me more about that.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
That's counseling, not forensically.
Yeah.
Is this real?
Right.
Forensic interviews, we have to ask him an open-ended question.
Yes. So what I remember, and I say "come to rest" because that's some fancy term we use in accident reports. The vehicle came to rest.
No, but it's very deep. Like, we know exactly what that means.
Yeah. So we ended up in these people's yard, and this is a phrase I got from my old man years ago when he was drunk driving and turned his 71 Ford F-150 into a snowmobile. Went off the road.
When you weren't driving for him?
Yeah, when I wasn't driving for him when I was 10 years old. That's another story. But so the vehicle comes to rest, you start hearing things, you start feeling things, there's fucking smoke, and there's, and I'm like, well, I'm still alive because there's no way that it hurts this fucking bad when you're dead.
Right.
And I remember my old man saying that. He says, I knew I wasn't dead because it hurt so fucking bad.
What hurt?
Oh, God, everything.
Like, literally, could you even pinpoint it?
So the first thing for me that I really realized that hurt, which is where I had no damage, was my chest.
Interesting.
So, and obviously,
the computer.
Now the airbag did not hit me. Obviously, when you get in an accident with a seatbelt, then you kind of get that thing. But you
were wearing a seatbelt.
I was wearing a seatbelt. Yes. My first initial thing was that I was fucked up on the inside. I had internal injuries.
You had convinced yourself of this.
I was assessing.
Okay.
And again, it's like, oh, I'm fucked, right? and so from there, it's like, but I was, and again, I'm not a badass. I'm just gonna tell it the way, because I didn't want to fucking die, and so I can remember thinking, okay, I'm fucked up on the inside, and I just remember trying to slow my breathing and calm the fuck down a little bit, and then I started kind of doing this, and what's funny was.
He's touching his head.
I'm touching my head, yes. I started feeling around on the top of my head.
Were you making sure your brains were still there?
Well, here's the thing. I could feel all these like lumps and shit, and I'm like, what I thought it was that because prior to the accident, I would just wear reading glasses.
Yes.
And often what I would do is I would
I've
just
seen
put them
you
on,
do that.
just on top of my head.
Yeah.
So initially I'm like, Jesus Christ, I hit so fucking hard. My glass is literally embedded in my forehead, which wasn't the case. It was bone and shit. But
at the time, you didn't know that. That's how your brain was reasoning what it was feeling.
And so I'm doing this, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, my glass. And it wasn't. And so that's when, I don't know if I should use names. Is it okay to use?
You can say your partner.
Don't use last names.
Okay, just Dawn, the driver. She's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
And was Dawn okay?
Dawn was fine. I mean,
good.
physically,
Up,
yes,
right,
yeah.
right.
I mean,
Right. So she whiplash or any bruises or
just
anything.
some-
She didn't have a computer in front of her. She had a steering wheel and an airbag.
Yeah,
And
and
her
honestly,
seatbelt.
she had some minor cuts and bruises and stuff, but minor. And I can remember her going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like,
No.
"No," but she's like, and again, I'm not knocking her, But she was new at this.
Yeah.
And she's like,
you were training her.
Well, yeah. And again, 2.5 months of being a cop doesn't
prepare you
for anything.
No, that's like going on a hunting trip with your dad and something bad happens to him,
right.
and then you're asking him to help you help him.
Right. So she's like, what do I do? What do I do? And what's interesting, and I'll just briefly cover it because it'll make sense, is I was involved in 2002, the dark year. Unfortunately, I was involved while on patrol. I was involved in a fatal accident where a drunk driver ran a stop sign in front of me. I T-boned them. It caused the passenger to be ejected from the vehicle, and he died.
Right.
But so what I remember from that was when I came to rest on that one, and I'm rambling a little bit, I apologize.
No.
Was that my music radio or the car radio was still going where I could hear music, which led me to believe I still had power to the car, so I was able to call out on my microphone. In this situation, I couldn't hear shit. I mean, we'd shut that fucker down. I mean, obviously,
when the collision happened, it was just
so we had no power. I said, Dawn, I says we got to get help. I said that's the first fucking thing we got to do. She goes, and I'm like, you got to get out. The car's fucked. You got to get out. Use your portable radio. And for whatever reason, I've never listened to the audio from that 911 call, and I don't know why. Not for any reason other than I've got it.
Do you have it?
I have it. It was one of those things I was going to do and just never had. But
have you felt like traumatizing yourself recently?
No. I mean, I don't think it. I mean, it probably would. I mean, it triggers. Today, I mean, not to make you guys feel guilty. And that's not my.
I don't. We know we're triggering you. But that's why we offered hugs.
It'll trigger. It'll trigger. But so she got out of the car, and she got a call out on the radio. And, of course, people were starting to stop. And so not only did she get out on the radio, but 911 calls were coming in. And then she got back in the car, and she goes, what do I do now? I says, and this is the way I remember saying it. You know that I'm on blood thinners, and I'm pretty sure I'm bleeding bad. I said, you've got to get pressure on this till somebody gets here. And so she couldn't we keep our med kits in the back of the trunk of we drive the SUVs, the Explorers.
Okay.
And no power, she couldn't get into the fucking car. So a dude goes, hey, I got a hammer. So she smashed the back window and grabbed the bag, and she was holding pressure. And I remember, so I was in the passenger seat. And again, I'm just trying to be calm. And at that point, I'd assessed that I felt like I knew both my hands felt like they were broke, my wrists. When I moved my right leg, I could tell it was broke. She's holding pressure on my face, which was obviously the worst of the injuries.
The head injury, really, from the computer.
Yeah, the head injury. So, stopping the bleeding and whatnot. And I remember, one of the things I remember vividly is that she was across me. So she was still in the driver's seat, kind of leaning over and putting the pressure. And I remember I started to sweat because it was hotter than fuck.
Yeah.
And, of course, now we're not running air conditioner or nothing. And it's something I remember from being a kid when you would pass out or you'd get dizzy, that you start to sweat and you could feel the beads. Mm-hmm. And my mind is in my head, if I passed out, I was fucked. I was dead. Like that's just
that's what's going on. Right.
And so I said,
stay awake.
I said, Dawn, I think I'm going to pass out. I don't know. That's probably not how I said it, but I said, you've got to get this fucking door open. She gets the door open, and I can remember at the time, because, it's 7 at this point, there's a little bit of a breeze, and that breeze comes in, and I remember feeling it, and I'm touching my forehead again. I remember feeling it hitting my face, and it started to cool, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm okay, I can do this. I'm not, and that really helped because I could feel that cool air, and it kind of gave me that second wind to, because I'll be honest, I mean, I'm not being dramatic. I was checking out.
I was just saying, God or the devil wasn't ready for you yet.
Yeah.
The breeze of reality made you stay in your current plane.
The way I talk, I kind of feel like the old Grim Reaper was standing at the intersection. He's like, I got shit to do, motherfucker.
He's pointing to his wrist,
I'm pointing to my watch,
like,
I got shit to do, man.
TikTok.
Yeah. 91 Benny in, Buffalo, New York, man. He's about to check out, and I got to get there, And so, but I'm like, okay, I'm not fucking dead yet. And about that time, too, I could hear all the fucking sirens.
Yes.
And I apologize. I'm really using the F word a lot.
No.
They are so used to this.
So
do what you need to cope also.
And that was the sweetest sound I've ever heard in my life.
Absolutely.
The sirens?
The sirens. And so people start showing up. And I remember my partner at the time, or he was my sergeant, Kevin. I remember him showing up, and he tells the story kind of like when he said, how is it? And I said, it's bad. Because...
He could probably tell from looking at you and wanted your assessment.
Yeah. Yeah, because
What do you say when you? It's not just your partner. I mean, is this your best friend at the
well,
time?
yeah, I mean, this is
the
someone
person
who
you spend more time with than your
this
wife.
is someone I consider one of my best friends. I mean, I love him like a brother, you know. And so, and I feel for the people that had to deal with the shit on scene and even after the fact. Because for a lot of it after the fact, I was completely out of it, you know.
Right, but they weren't.
But they weren't. But
And just so everybody knows, the trauma perspective from living in a small town is that when you roll up on a police officer, everybody knows you. Almost everybody likes you that you work with, right? And so these people are rolling up, and it's not just like, oh, there's an officer down. It's like, oh my God, this is somebody we care about.
Well, one of the guys that showed up on scene because he's with the fire department who is our mechanic.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, this is
Bill's
someone.
known you forever.
Yeah, I mean, so people were showing up on scene. Tammy Rose's
That's how it was able to get to by the end of that football game. I knew all those sirens were for you.
Right. So people were showing up on scene who knew me personally and professionally. Yes. I mean, you know, because so people start showing up, you know, and I was just trying not to die, really.
Right.
And I remember because
Good job, by the way. Good job.
I remember Kevin because. He's like, you got to stay awake, man. I know, yeah, I get it. And he wanted me to talk. And finally, I'm like, listen, man, I'll say a word every once in a while, but it fucking hurts. But I couldn't carry on a conversation. I mean, talking hurt, breathing hurt, everything hurt. So they get me out. I wasn't pinned in per se, but because of my injuries, it's not like I could walk to the ambulance.
Yeah, they needed to carefully remove you.
Right. So, you know, so they removed me on a gurney. And I remember at the time, one of the things that I was terrified of, I'd had some heart issues years ago, and because I had some pain, they had given me some morphine, and I almost coded out, like I had to get Narcan.
So you're like, don't give me morphine, don't give me blood thinners.
Right. And I'm like, I'm trying to and again, I'm not saying that I was completely with it because I wasn't, but I'm like, listen, I'm on blood thinners, you know, I can't do morphine, I'll fucking code, you know, just stuff like that, and I was awake through all of that. Once they got me in the ambulance, they gave me fentanyl, and I started to kind of drift.
Well, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
And also, please keep the Narcan close by.
Yeah. So,
right.
So, you know, obviously they get me out, and I can hear the helicopters. And again, you want to talk an amazing fucking noise? Hearing those fuckers come down. And
not from the position of where we're sitting, because by then news had already traveled.
Oh, sure.
And so
we heard life flight goes over my house, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And I knew who was in it, and sitting at home with my husband, who happens to work with you, by the way.
Right.
But, although I would argue that you and I are closer friends, but it was awful.
Yes.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And we're all messaging each other.
Yes.
Well, and so
just so you know how traumatized we were by your injury.
I totally get it. So, and there's a lot, you know, I'll explain kind of what was happening. I get in the ambulance, and obviously then they placed me into the helicopter. And I can remember we'll get to that. I can't see out of my one eye now, but at the time I was all wrapped up, so I couldn't see shit. And so they placed me in there, and I know this from pictures, but in my mind, helicopters are fucking huge.
No,
but they're not. So so I'm in there. I can't see anything, but I can feel that people are very close.
Sure.
And I can remember the pilot saying something to the effect, however he put it, basically was he was telling the other people to strap in and hang on,
like we're going,
like we got to go. He
now.
says we have got to go.
Yeah.
So, and my recollection may not be completely correct, but I want to say from where I was at, South Hillsdale and Bear Lake, the flight to Parkview in Fort Wayne was 11 minutes.
Yeah, I believe it.
They went up and they boom, and then down there they don't circle, they just land, right? And so
that's a level 2 trauma center, I think,
yeah,
or is it level 1? My sister worked there.
Yeah,
in the
badass
ED.
place. At some point, maybe not in this one. If I ever get invited back, I'll tell you how fucking amazing that hospital is.
Yeah, an invitation back, you don't mean in the same method. You just mean by as a visit.
Yeah,
okay,
yes,
cool.
So, but amazing hospital. So that gets to that point. So what was happening behind the scenes was I mentioned that we were getting together at a friend's house for tacos. Well, my wife shows up, and as my wife shows up, because they can hear all the lights and sirens and shit, and my buddy that lives there is an accident investigator. He's hearing all this shit. He turns on his fucking radio.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and they hear it, and they start putting two to two together.
Were you at TJ and Q's
TJ and Quinn, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I said.
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'm just trying to figure out who was down there.
A couple who I work with who are amazing best friends, and we're amazing through that.
They're awesome.
Just so my wife walks in and they're listening. Well, and they turn it down, but then they're like, "Hey, hey." Heidi's like, "Hey, what's?" And they're like, "I need you to sit down."
Oh my God, worst day ever.
Yeah. Wes has been in an accident. We don't know how bad it is. I mean, they didn't know shit.
No.
They knew there was life flights. There was talk of a female being life flighted, which turned out to be the driver of the other vehicle. But there was concerns for Dawn, for the driver. So they don't know where I'm at. They don't know if I'm alive. They don't know if I'm dead. I mean, nothing. They call my mom. They pick my mom up. Somehow my buddy Sheila, who works for us, she ended up getting involved and showing up. And so they get my wife and my mom to the hospital. And again, we're still trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Mm-hmm. And
they're going to get them in the hospital. And
right.
They're not going to see you.
Yeah. And and I'm not even there. So.
Oh, they went to our local hospital?
They went to the local.
Shit. Yeah. They don't even know you've been flown to a different state. They don't even know.
So they get there and they're trying to, kind of sort everything out. That's when they
have no idea.
They have no idea
where you are. Who tells them that you've been life flighted?
So Casey, my buddy Casey, who was my partner at the time, we worked second. He was the other car. He had been on scene. He left from there, and I don't remember if I told him. I remember at some point, somebody needs to tell my wife, don't freak her the fuck out, or whatever you say in a situation
right.
like that. Casey goes to the hospital, makes contact with my wife, and says it's bad. But he's talking. He was conscious. He was talking. This is where they're taking him. They life flighted him. And again, I don't want to put words in my wife's mouth or what she said, but on the way down there, they figured I was dead.
Sure.
Honestly.
I mean, right.
It would be bad.
Well, then what happened?
They're preparing themselves.
I'm giggling, and it's not fucking funny, but when my wife and my entourage show up,
my entourage,
they show up. The first person to meet him is the chaplain.
Oh, that's not ever good.
Oh, God.
No.
What?
I mean, it makes sense because they're actually there to help you. But your first thought is, my God, the greeter to Jesus has just come to explain what happened.
Oh, the bridge to God.
Reminds me, I have to go. I need to tell this. It's kind of out of the loop. So, funny story about the accident. It was right down from my ex-wife's house.
I love this story.
Now, people always go, I've been married a few times.
Right. So I was going to ask, how does being a law enforcement officer affect your personal life?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. So
this is wife number 3, by the way.
I'm on wife number 3. Yes. This
happily married, and she's a doll.
Yes, she's awesome. So this is my second wife, or second ex.
Was your ex?
Ex number 2. And just down from her house. So I'm laying in this, I'm sitting in this car, right? And I'm trying not to die.
Oh, God.
And I hear this voice, Wes.
The Grim Reaper
right?
shows up.
I hear Wes, and it's my ex-wife's voice, and I go, motherfucker. I go, I have died, and this bitch is my escort to hell. Like, she's here to greet me, right? Right?
Yes.
Like, I'm like, how did this fucking happen? I'm dead, I'm in hell, and she's my tour guide.
At some point, did you just sigh and go, well, it was bound to happen. This is how it was going to go
and then,
for me.
And then obviously I heard other things, and I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm dead. But I just remember it's funny. Like, I'm in hell. And
your second ex-wife showed up at the scene of your crime, of your injury.
Yeah. And it was out of concern.
Of course it was. Because again, everybody remains friends with you.
Unfortunately, some other things happened that she tried to call my children who she was not close to.
Oh, God.
She put me flying away in the helicopter on Facebook.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So things you weren't super happy about.
But long story short.
So I wasn't too far off.
So the funny part is I thought I had died and gone to hell. And I'm like, this is bullshit. I didn't even get to plead my case. I didn't fill out an application.
I want a lawyer.
I am in hell, and my ex-wife is my tour guide. So
without any sort of life review.
Right.
This is not
I'm like,
fair.
no, I want to file an appeal.
Did your life flash before your eyes, Wes?
It's not a real thing.
I didn't think so.
I did want to ask you. No, not a thing.
Did you see any lights?
No, you don't see shit.
You went deaf.
I went deaf for just a brief period. And I've been in a few close calls. I mean, other things. But this one, your life doesn't, maybe when you actually, I don't know.
Yeah, because you didn't actually cross the veil.
That we know of.
Yeah.
I mean,
they might have spit him right back out, honestly.
In my mind, nothing. My life doesn't flash before my life. I was so in the moment. I just didn't want to fucking die.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, that makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the chaplain meets up with your wife and your
Yes.
mom and in Fort Wayne.
So initially, obviously, he's like, "Hi, I'm chaplain," and my wife, because she thinks I'm dead.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they're like, "No, this is it. This is that." So
There's been a misunderstanding.
there's been a misunderstanding.
I'm just here to.
So obviously they bring her
comfort
into
you.
me, and during this time, people are showing up. My kids are coming. I can't remember the timeline because at this point,
They have you medicated.
I'm medicated. I'm drifting in and out, and I'm being a comic.
He was being a
I was being a comic, and I'll tell some of that. So
Please do.
So obviously,
Hi, Wes.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they, at this point they're taking care of me where they're talking, obviously the first surgery, to take care of the facial stuff. And then there was going to be surgeries after that. But so talking about the funny stuff. So again, I can't see shit. I'm all bandaged up. My plastic surgeon comes in and, Dr. Guy Crevecoeur, French Haitian doctor. And I won't be able to do his accent right. And I
But you
apologize.
should try.
I tried, but every accent sounds like I'm Chinese.
All of Charnell sound English or Irish.
So
Southern.
so he's talking, he's telling me what he's going to do and shit. And I go, "Hey man, can you make me look like Matthew McConaughey?" And he goes, "I cannot do that." And I go, "Be a lot cooler if you did." Right? And just stuff like that,
See,
point,
this
your
is
wife
when
has
you
to
know
be
you're
like,
okay.
Yeah.
I would feel better knowing that.
And I'm like, all right. I'm just doing goofy shit.
Fentanyl shit.
Yeah.
I believe you asked them if they could make you Bruce Willis hot.
That might have been a thing because that's always been my goal.
Yeah, it's to be Bruce
So
Willis hot.
so I was hoping that
They did a damn good job.
they did an
You
amazing
cannot
job.
tell
So
that you-
The only scar I can see
Yeah, there's
is the
only
one
just
that's
a-
diagonal across
Yeah,
the bridge
that's-
of your nose.
that's
And you
it.
wear spectacles.
yeah,
so
I
you
was
can't-
So amazing job.
Can you list us your injuries?
Oh yeah. So okay. I guess we'll go right from
Top
the
to
Start from
Top
the
to
top
bottom.
down. We like to go nose to
It
tail
was
in
funny.
this.
One time I was when I was going through all my shit. I think it was when I was getting into the brain institute, the brain injury institute. They're like having me talk, and I'm like, "Well, I got this," and like, "Okay," and I go, "Then I got this," and I go, "Okay." Well, then I got this. Okay, sir. So I go, "I'm not done." And then so I kept. So long story short, we'll start with the head. Obviously, the impact from hitting the computer caused the instant optical neuropathy in my right eye. So my right eye was instantly blind. A brain injury, which affected some cognitive impairment. And we can talk more about that if we want at some point. But
Or we can just ask you questions until
or
it
you can
becomes
just
obvious.
yeah. So then going down from there, severe hearing loss in my right ear to where, like, to put it in a perspective, I'm talking right now, and I have a pretty deep, loud voice. But in my right ear, I can hear the tinnitus over the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, you're ringing all the time.
Yeah, and I don't have my hearing aids, which does help.
Which you did not have prior.
I did not have prior. No. The hearing aids are a result of the accident. Severe tinnitus, hearing loss. Obviously,
They broke your beautiful nose.
they broke my beautiful nose.
It was one of his shining features,
Yes.
his delicate little nose.
I don't
It
have.
was very tiny.
So I don't have much like cartilage or
Yeah.
bone.
Yep.
So that's a very sensitive spot for me. What my plastic surgeon can say is don't take boxing up as a career.
Or really piss your wife off.
Or really piss my wife off.
Don't punch him in the face.
Yeah. So
You can't tell you had any surgery.
no,
on
it
your nose.
so
That's
yeah,
amazing.
so to go back to Dr. Crevecoeur, rated one of the 50 top plastic surgeons in the United States, and he just happened to be on call that
He
night.
was your on-call doc.
Yeah, it was
That's
just
amazing.
That is
pure
amazing.
luck. I love this dude, man, and I would
Karma made up for the fact that your second ex-wife rolled
Yes.
up at the scene of your injury.
and I would screw with that dude every time I had an appointment. I had a fucking blast with him. Like the one time, because he would always take pictures of me.
Sure.
And I go, "I know what you're doing, Doc." He goes, "What?" I go, "On your Tinder profile, you're a short, fat, hot, little, sexy, bald dude." Right? And he looks at me straight face and he goes, "I do not know this Tinder."
I do not know that.
And then the second time because I had a plate in there for a while while everything healed.
You had the plate in where?
My nose.
Oh, like
and it
right up above your
Yeah, and you
temple?
could actually see it. Like there was it was terrible. Yeah.
Sticking out.
So they removed that like 6 months later, 9 months later. And I remember when he came in, I go, "Let me see those hands, Doc." He's like, "What?" I said, "I know you were out partying all night." I said, "I need to see if you got the shakes, right?" And he starts to kind of, he's like, "What
Why am I
why
pooping?
am I doing this?"
Why am I doing
So going back down to injuries. So I broke both my wrists. I detached my thumb.
Oh, God, it hurts.
Yeah.
Why does that bother me more than anything else you've said? Because you can feel that, right?
Yeah. So I've got, and I'm showing them a scar. So after my surgeries, because it had tore the tendons and ligaments, they had to put a wire into my bone so that the tendons and ligaments would grow back so I could use my thumb. And I still have nerve loss. Like when I do that, it like tingles and shit. So broke this wrist, detached this thumb, broke this wrist, broke this forearm. I've got a plate that goes all the way down. Left forearm. And then right leg, I broke my right leg probably closer to the ankle, but the metal rod goes to about midway on my calf.
Okay.
So and that's the permanent.
All of that's permanent. Yes. Yeah. So
like they're not just going to pull you in and like pull a rod out of your leg at some point. That's not fixable. That's to support the bone.
No, and yeah, like with I mean, realistically, they told, and I don't walk without a limp. I mean, sometimes it's less pronounced.
You have it now down to a swag.
It's like a pimp limp.
It is
a pimp limp.
I always used to joke like
swagger.
I always, and again, I'm bouncing, but I always figured I'd get hurt at work. Bad, but I always thought maybe I'd get shot or some shit.
Yeah,
sure.
So I used to joke, man, maybe if I get hit in the thigh or like the hip, I'll have this cool pimp limp and shit like that.
Oh, well, you ended up with it.
So yeah.
Careful what you put out into the universe. That shit comes back.
Oh yeah.
If this is the only thing that's come back to you from what you put out in the universe, I think you should actually call this a win.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. So I mean, I'm fucked up.
Okay, here's what you guys need to know. If you knew Wes pre-accident, and he calls himself fucked up, it's hard to tell the difference between pre-accident Wes and post-accident Wes. That's where your charming and charismatic personality comes in.
It's a sense of humor, but also finding the humor in yourself. You can make fun of yourself, right? Like, do you want to tell the listeners what you were going to title your autobiography someday? Do you remember what you told us once? This was at a soiree.
It wasn't the Dear Sheriff.
It was.
It Dear Sheriff, no one's as surprised as I.
And that's just it. The name of the autobiography. Yeah. Dear Sheriff, no one was as surprised as I. Like, it explains it.
So another thing was, because after the accident, everybody's, oh, you're too tough to die. You're too tough to die. And I'm like, no, I just think I'm too fucking dumb to die. Yeah. So that's the name of my soon-to-be country album, Too Dumb to Die.
Too Dumb to Die.
Too Dumb to Die.
So the autobiography is Dear Sheriff, and then Too Dumb to Die is your music.
Yes, Too Dumb to Die.
And then when you do your interpretive river dance, what will that be? What will that be called?
I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's, what's the song? Sitting at a Bar by Rehab.
Oh, yeah.
So I think people probably want to know then, based off of your injuries, what ended up happening to you career-wise after that? Because for most people, right here could be a career ender.
Oh, yeah, it very easily could have been.
Especially when you say things like traumatic brain injury and brain damage of some.
And so to get into that, so there's an amazing, and I'm going to shout out. Is that what we call it on podcasts?
Yeah, shout out.
Sure is.
In Mason, Michigan, there's the Origami Brain Institute. They do injuries and they do,
It makes me feel like they're folding people's brains up into swans.
Yeah.
Voila! Today you are a crane.
So, and the only reason I was going up there is because they do physical therapy and things of that nature, but my reason for going up there was for eye therapy, because obviously, and I, being blind in the one eye now, only having the monocular vision, that was a huge struggle.
Sure.
Well, you were still hoping at that point that there was hope.
Nah. Not at that point.
You knew there wasn't?
Yeah, no, so...
Were they trying to therapeutically make... Why were they sending you there then?
Just so I could basically go through therapy to...
Learning how to be a different eye dominant?
And a lot of that was, learning to be different eye dominant and learning to... They almost, it sucked. It was very rare that I didn't throw up or dry heave after a session.
I believe it.
Or I would have to stop in the middle of it because I would get sick. Because now you're only dealing with one eye, even though, and obviously you guys, the listeners can't see it, but my eye looks normal.
It does.
It reacts to light. It does the same. So
it moves the same way
all that's
the other
good.
one does. Yep.
But I have only got the one eye to deal with, so that eye takes on all of it. Mm-hmm. So they had to basically, one of the things they had to do is desensitize me to motion. Mm-hmm. Like they would sit me in a chair and they'd take a ball and they like it was attached to the ceiling and they'd fling that fucker and it'd go back and forth and I'd have to follow it. Or there was a thing called the Wheel of Death.
I mean, that's what you called
Right,
it.
that's what I called it.
I actually call those Ferris wheels.
Yeah. So Wheel of Death, where it like had things where you could put pegs in it and it would spin and they would call out pegs and I would have to follow the pegs.
Oh, that makes me want to vomit.
God.
Yeah.
No wonder why you vomited.
So
I would with 2 eyes.
and I still occasionally, depending on things, will get nauseous or I had really bad vertigo. Oh my God, it was terrible. Yeah. So that's why I went up there. So they're doing my intake and we're filling out paperwork and shit in this little room. And all of a sudden the lady kind of looks at me weird. She goes, I'll be right back.
Oh no, you don't ever want that.
No. And so my wife looks at me.
Especially if you're at the clinic.
And my wife, and you guys know my wife. So my wife looks at me when she leaves the room and she goes, what the fuck did you do wrong? I go, I didn't do nothing wrong. I said, this isn't on me. Well, you must have done something. No. So, and that's just, so,
I love it.
So they get back in the room and with this other chick and she's looking serious as a heart attack. And she goes, have you been tested for any type of brain injury or cognitive impairment? I go, no.
No, I'm like this all the time, ma'am.
I was just going to say, no, that's just me.
Normally
so like I had gone to a neurologist and they'd done checks and they'd done, so there was nothing. And the thing about brain injuries is that 9 times out of 10, there's nothing you can see.
Right. Sure.
So, and we had already discovered, like my wife had already seen some things and
behavior changes.
Did
you like do the dishes without being asked?
No.
Because I would be like freaking out at that point.
So with my cognitive impairment, a lot of it, and it still is if I'm stressed or tired, but my short-term memory. Oh. So my wife was still working thirds, and I was home by myself, and I would do things like I would cook a pot of soup for 2 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long.
Not like it was cooking, like, oh, I'm simmering it, like on high, out of the can, takes 2 minutes, and I would literally.
I would leave 2 hours.
I would leave doors open. I would let the sink run. Mm-hmm. It just things went away. I mean, and that was a big part of it, but also not being able to process things, not being able to control my emotions like I used to be able to, things of that nature. I was also diagnosed with what they call neurofatigue. Oh, okay. Which basically
my brain is tired.
My brain is tired, and what they describe it as is most people when they go to bed, when you wake up in the morning. Your brain battery is 100%. Nope. So for me,
most people, my ass. Anybody who works in the lines of, I haven't woken up with anything better than a 75% brain in 20 years.
Right. So the way they describe it to me is I realistically, my brain will never charge to 100%. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. I might get to 50.
So you have a Samsung?
Yes, I've got a shitty brain battery.
Okay.
And so, and it depletes rapidly. And when it's done, it's done. You cannot. One of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is that, you can push through it. Well, you can't. You can't. Right. You can't. No. I mean, it'll come to the point if I try to push past that point. I mean, I will become physically ill. Mm-hmm. Like it's rough, but
it's your brain.
It's your brain. Yeah. So I went, but I did a lot of therapy for that. Kind of got that back. So that's not something I deal with a lot. But people that know me well sometimes will be like, you just asked me that. Or, little things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I'll say, like, let's say I'll walk into my chemistry room. Hey, man, I've got this interview at 3:00. And then like 2 minutes later, like, did I tell you I had an interview? Like, it's just little things like that.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Are they used to this now?
Everyone has been awesome.
Now, I want to make sure that everybody knows you have been released to come back to work. Like your brain is working to the appropriate capacity for law enforcement now.
Yeah.
You're just letting us know that you still have those moments,
correct,
that
yes.
brain
Small
fatigue.
Moments. Mm-hmm.
And you know that there are certain days, like, do you ever wake up and are like, yeah, so today's going to be a day I can't go in?
Yeah. And
my brain is not okay today.
Yeah. So, and maybe I'll lead up to that with how I got back to work. Yeah. So about a week into it, 2 weeks into it, I called what's MCOLS, which is the licensing for law enforcement in the state of Michigan. And I told them what was going on. I asked what their criteria was. And they said, well, you have to have all of this to get into a police academy and to get hired. Once you're hired, he said, we have 18,000 cops in the state of Michigan. We can't track all of them. So from that point on, once you're hired by an agency, it's up to the agency what the standards will be. Oh. So I was very fortunate, especially with, and again, I'm going to put a shout out, we had a change in administration. We got a new sheriff, new undersheriff. We had a lot of changes, and they were absolutely incredible. Worked with me, and basically the discussion was that I would come back as a detective sergeant. So I got a promotion, plus I get to do detective work. So,
which probably could have happened a long time ago in terms of your skill set.
Should have happened a long time.
Yeah, I was being. I tend to be real neutral here.
Yeah, I probably don't have to be.
No, you don't.
So
you don't. Neither does Charnell.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that ever has to
it should have happened
here.
years before this. I mean, but that's a different story.
Well, I think it's important too, and I hope that our listeners recognize this as we talk all the time about police officers who shouldn't be cops. And I think you and I have talked once before about how there's a difference between police officers and cops, and that's why you don't find that term offensive like some people do.
No,
You're a cop.
I'm a cop.
If you have a good one who really knows how to work not only the street but the investigations, you do anything you can to keep them if they're still capable of working, and that's what you found with this new administration.
And again, I was very fortunate that they realized that I was an asset. And
you could have retired.
I could have retired. I could have medically retired. I didn't want to. It was very important to me. And again, it's probably stubbornness on my part.
You're young. I'm
just
turned 50.
Yeah, I just turned 50.
So you'll be 51 in
March.
Yeah.
Well, next weekend. Yeah. But at the time of the accident, I was 47, right?
Yeah.
47, 48.
What year was it?
19.
19?
47. And I was very displeased with the fact that if I would have medically retired, I was not going out on my own terms.
Fair enough.
And it became a goal for me and part of my rehabilitation, if you want to call it, that I did get back to work. Mm-hmm. So I set that goal and
achieved it.
Yeah. So
what type of things do you get to do now as a detective sergeant? You kind of met your career goal through all of this, right?
Yes, yeah.
You didn't start off wanting to be a detective, but you learned you were good at it.
I learned I was good at it. So now, I mean, and I do because we're a smaller agency, so I sometimes cover supervision, where I would be responsible for the jail and the road and dispatch and things of that nature. But the majority of my day-to-day job is detective work, investigations, interviews, search
working
warrants,
with people,
so it's absolutely awesome, and like you said, talking about, my partners, my bosses understand my situation, and it was more at first, because I was off about a year and a half, and then I came back, I started out.
Were you off that long?
Yeah.
Was it 18 months?
Yeah. So whatever the math is, I got hurt August 28th, 2019. I went back to work. For some reason, I have Valentine's Day in my head, February 14th of 2021.
Okay.
So whatever and at first it was part-time. I didn't actually go back completely full-time till the end of May. Like I started out literally like 10 hours a week.
That makes sense.
And it was all I could do.
For sure.
Like the first day was a 3-hour day, and at the end of it, I was just
right. No,
toast.
You have to retrain your brain.
Yeah. And what's funny about brain injuries, is even good things with my situation will wear me out.
Oh, definitely.
Like, for example, my brother and I went to a metal concert Thursday night, or Wednesday night, whatever the hell night it was, Wednesday night.
I hope you forgot your hearing aids for that, too.
Yeah. Well, at that point, I'd already broke them. So,
okay.
But even fun things like having my grandchildren come over. They came over yesterday, and I love my grandchildren, love being with them. But they make me tired. Uh-huh. So even good things make me tired.
Large social settings, too. All three of us were recently at a charity event because I host the child abuse prevention ball, and we were all there and with our significant others. But I can imagine being around that many people for that long. You're like, I'm ready to get out of here.
Well, and unfortunately, like me trying to destroy your blinds here in the room.
She didn't. Did you see it?
No,
he mostly just ran into them.
So,
it was very graceful, and no one was going to say anything. It wasn't like your monster truck.
Yeah, right. So unfortunately, one of the big issues with only having one eye is you run into shit. And so in situations like that, like where you've got close proximity to tables and whatnot, I run into shit. I run into people.
Well, and that's because it happened later in your life, too.
Right.
My dad, for example, has been blind in one eye since he was about 3. It was the proverbial, you'll poke your brother's eye out with a stick, and that happened.
Oh, God.
So his eye moves around normally, by the way, but it doesn't dilate correctly like it's always dilated.
Right.
It doesn't react. He is a fantastic shot. He's a great driver. He just, because he was able to accommodate it, it's pretty hard to retrain a 47-year-old brain.
It is, yeah. And it's still, and you learn tricks. You learn, like, if people are watching me, I move my head a lot because I have to, I have to,
it's situational awareness, right?
Yeah.
Occupational hazard. You're always aware of your surroundings, and now you have less visibility on one side.
Right. And depth perception is a huge thing.
Okay.
Like, I remember I was going to impress my caseworker. I'm like, look, I'm getting used to it. And I put something on a table and it fucking fell off. And I'm like, so depth perception.
I meant to do that.
Yes, depth perception is huge. But
I was just making a joke. It's fine.
yeah, of course, then COVID happened during all that, so that made it even weirder.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm good. I'm a social person. But big situations like that, there are some difficulties. But most of the people I'm close with know, and people at work will stand on my right side and wait till I see them, and then just
Like to be funny?
to fuck with me, yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Which-
so those are just
But-
good friends.
And again, nothing's. I mean, especially in our careers, in law enforcement, there's nothing that is sacred. There's nothing that's out of bounds. And so the fact that I'm able to make jokes and other people make jokes, like my buddy Justin calls my wife my senile wife.
I love that.
So the fact that we can, I'm always every time somebody will say something, that's going in the lawsuit,
Right.
Yeah, so,
Maybe no.
you're making fun of me with my disability. So, but
So something completely unfair. Like you said, you always knew that you probably would end up at some point injured at work or on the job.
Yeah.
This wasn't what you saw coming, though.
no, I thought it'd be a lot cooler.
Yeah, right.
I'll be honest. And that, believe it or not, I've read a couple articles, and there's a great article. I don't know the dude's name. He was a cop, and the title of the article is, "It would have been so much easier if I would have died."
And that's not even to be morbid, but you
No.
can understand why in
And
some of his
so,
arguments.
because, yeah.
And you did not want to die. Let's
I did
be
not
clear.
want to die. No. But I wanted it to be a lot cooler. Like I feel like it'd be a lot cooler if I was messed up like this, but I got shot and saved a baby or some shit. You know what I'm saying?
I do understand.
You were responding to a domestic, though, and I want people to understand. I don't care if that was a verbal argument or anything else or somebody just being a dick. You were responding quickly to non-emergency, which is
Right.
why there were no lights and sirens, heading over because it could have been bad.
Oh yeah, it could have been real
Could have
bad. And again,
escalated, domestics especially.
in all honesty, you go back and you think of all the hot calls, rolling in on a man with a gun call, or a breaking and entering in progress, or an assault in progress, or whatever. You're rolling into that shit I could get fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're dialing in, but you're like, shit could go sideways.
Well, shit has gone sideways at calls for you before. And
Oh, yeah.
we've been at this for a while, but I'm going to ask you a couple. I mean, you've had some pretty interesting moments on people's decks. And things like that, too. I mean, any of those that you care to share so people can understand just all of the pitfalls and downfalls.
Which
of
one was the
law
deck? Is that
enforcement.
where I rode the dude down the stairs?
I think that might be. it.
I rode.
Yeah.
Like a horse.
So my buddy and I,
Giddy up.
my buddy and Wilmer and I go out, and it's this time of year, maybe a little warmer, but it's there's kind of some snow, but then there's mud and shit. And this dude was him and his wife were going through a divorce, and he was stalking her, and there was a PPO, and he'd assaulted her, and he would call and go, "I love you, baby, please come back." And then the next, we'd listen to the message, the next call, and I'm laughing just because this dude was nuts, so I'm making fun of him,
Right,
not
right.
the victim.
That's what we do.
Yes.
Here. Yeah.
So he'd be like, "I love you, baby. Please come back. I'll change." And the next call be like, "I fucking hate you, you fucking whore." It's
Yes.
holy shit.
yeah, we're familiar.
So,
Yep.
so he was threatening to go over and shoot her. So we show up, and he's on the phone. And I'm like, "You need to come out here." And he's like, "I'm on the phone." I don't give a fuck, you're on the phone. And I'm like, "You need to step out." And he's like, "I'm not going to talk to you guys." He starts to go back into the house. Well, at that point, he was going to be arrested. So I advised he was under arrest. That did not go well.
He didn't. He objected.
He objected. And I was the only one up on the deck. My buddy, I think, had gone around because he hadn't, checking because the guy hadn't come out of the house yet or some bullshit. So we're wrestling on the porch. I get to the point where I realize that I can throw him down the stairs.
This may end the confrontation.
So, and honestly, that was the thing. Not that I was looking to harm the guy, but I was looking to stop his aggression.
Right.
So I end up kind of doing this half-ass bone in China shop karate move, whatever you want to call it, judo. And
Do you know judo?
I do not.
I
No.
saw it on
No.
TV. Did you stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
No. So basically, we do my martial art is what we call bull in a china shop. So I was able to get him thrown down on the stairs, but as I did that, I kind of tripped, and I ended up on top of him. So what it was described as my partner ran to my aid was that I was sledding or sliding down the hill using the steps, using him as a slide, right? So my buddy,
Is that the one where I rode the guy down the stairs?
I rode the guy down the stairs.
So my buddy, the way he tells this story is he's this majestic beast, and he's running towards me and he's jumping over yard gnomes and
Slow
shit.
motion,
Slow
like-
motion,
like,
he's
Baywatch.
jumping stuff and to get to me. But what happens when he gets to us? It's muddy and he can't really stop. And as we come down the stairs, we hit him, and so we all end up on the ground. We basically just take his legs right out from under him, and we all end up in this heap, right? So we finally get him arrested. We get to jail. We're all muddy. Like in the dude's mud photo, the whole right side of his body is just covered with mud and shit. So,
That's like funny mugshots.
So yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, all right. So we're probably needing to tie some things up here, but we're in a current climate where this is my opinion, and you tell me if you agree or not. Somehow law enforcement has gone from being in a career to a job.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of incentive, I think, for some people to do it, and maybe some people go into it not for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
why would you at this point in time, with the right person, encourage them to go into law enforcement? Can you still do good in this job?
So here's how I put it, because I get it all the time from people, like not necessarily people I know that are real close, but like, for example, my brother had a friend and we were at a cookout or some shit, and they're talking to me about their son who was 18 at the time. And I said, here's the first thing. I said, the child that you send into law enforcement is not going to be the child that you get back. Understand that. He's going to be a different person. But I said at the same time, if this is what he is meant to do and what he was born to do, there's nothing else that's going to suffice. There just isn't.
Right.
Like I thought about it, when I got hurt, it's like, what the fuck am I going to do? There's not anything else. I can't build shit. I can't fix shit. I can't do anything. But
Comedy Central.
well, I could be potentially maybe a comic. We'll see what people think.
Judo
Master, bull in a china shop.
Pornhub.
Yeah, Pornhub.
OnlyFans.
Sniffer.com.
Sniffer. Yeah, so
all kinds of options for you.
Not that we know any of those. Our listeners have told us about them.
There are people like there are some depths now at our place who I see that in, and I encourage that because the pay sucks, the job sucks, the hours suck, the benefits suck, politics suck. I mean, people suck. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
When it's a different climate where we're, unfortunately cops are seen, for good reason for some cops that have done dumb shit, but people are
Cops
bad
can be
shit,
criminals
bad
too,
shit.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Cops can be criminals, and the thing that most people don't realize is they want to get on all of us. When a cop does something dumb, like even cops we've had do shit dumb they're fucking dead to me once they do something dumb.
Right. You agree that they've done something wrong.
Yeah. It's like, fuck you, so it sucks to be a cop right now. And I know bigger places make better money, but you don't go into police work to make money.
No.
So
it's like a higher calling.
Right.
Yep. That you either have or you don't.
Right. So,
and I would, to piggyback off when you said that a cop is dead to you if they do something dumb.
Yeah.
Don't you think part of that is because you have to trust them literally with your life?
well, yeah, you're in situations where you have, when you're in the shit, it's something hot. When you hear lights and sirens coming, or you hear your partner show up on scene, or you're fighting with somebody, you're just hanging on till somebody gets there. You've got to trust that person 1,000%. And then not to say that good cops are all perfect. I mean, we still do dumb shit, but when you have somebody,
lots of good people do dumb shit, Wes, in any profession.
But then when you take somebody who does something that is bad,
right?
There's no way you can trust that person to have your back. To be there in that life to death situation.
You said you were born for this.
Yeah.
Is it a dumb question for me to ask? Would you do this all over again?
Oh, hell yeah.
So knowing what you were going to go through, riding people downstairs, getting hit at 70 miles an hour, like
in a heartbeat.
You do it all over.
Yeah. I would do it. Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't think we can end better than that.
No, I don't think so either.
Shall we bathe Wes?
We have to
This
show.
is going to be just as enjoyable as it sounds.
Okay.
The look on his face right now is priceless, you guys.
He's super happy and excited right now.
Do I need to call Heidi?
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah, you need a hall pass.
yeah, I'm in.
No, you don't.
I'm in danger.
Send help.
We aren't very scary looking sitting over here together.
Saying we're gonna bathe you.
Yeah.
We're going to bathe your brain.
We are.
It's
Okay.
a brain bath.
We are.
Brain bath.
Yeah.
So, since you haven't had a chance to listen to Crime Curious yet, something unique that we do as a true crime podcast is that at the end, after we've told people a horrific story and essentially traumatized them, we tell them something funny. So that we always leave them with a laugh in their heart, a smile on their face, instead of, feeling like they hate humanity and tears, right? Although your story didn't necessarily make us hate anything, but, and you yourself are a brain bath, truly. But we just want you.
A t-shirt.
I am a brain bath.
I am a brain bath.
I am a brain bath.
So we're gonna read for you a funny story.
Okay.
That I think that you'll have empathy for just as a man with a penis. Okay.
All right.
It was shared by Kangaroo Sack Jason, as a matter of fact.
I've been playing with this the whole time.
We're on almost 2 hours here at
And
content.
Kangaroo Sack Jason, yet another person has fallen victim to your smooth sack.
Yeah.
Yep.
When he listens, if he would like to send me one, that would be awesome.
We've got one better for you. We actually, and by we I mean Charnell, because I can't contract for stuff. But Charnell, tell him about our 20% off, right?
It's 10% off, I think.
Oh, it is 10% for Rue Balls.
Rue Balls, who makes these, actually is a sponsor of ours.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so you can go on their website and share the code is crime10.
Okay.
And you get 10% off of your own genuine kangaroo sack.
I am going to purchase one.
I
absolutely love this thing.
We're considering having them made with the Crime Curious logo on them.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, it's become a real thing.
We actually thought that if we put our side profiles on them too, they might get stroked more often, and that's another option as well.
I don't look good from the side. My nose is too big.
You're right. I actually think. Did you want to turn around?
Yes.
Then? Oh, okay. I was full frontal for me.
Yeah. Nobody likes their side profile.
No, that's true.
This is from the Daily Mail. Okay. The title is "Bungling Doctor Mistakenly Amputates Patient's Penis After Wrongfully Diagnosing Him with a Tumor."
Oh shit.
What was the doctor's name again?
Dr. Guy Crevacore.
Thank him.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for not removing my penis.
He worked on the correct end, made it great,
Although, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah. Always.
My second surgery to take the plate out, they were discussing that if I didn't have enough bone up here, they were going to take some from my hip bone or some shit.
Sure.
So you're laying there and you're buck naked under the thing, and Dr. Gee keeps ripping the sheet off, and my mom's in the room.
Oh God.
And my wife, and I'm like, I don't want my mom to see my penis. I mean, not at this point, and I kept trying to cover it up, and the motherfucker, he'd pull it back off again. And I'm like, dude.
So I gotta tell you.
I don't know why that come up. It just popped up in my head.
It just popped up.
It popped up. God.
So legitimately, this has happened twice in my life during my husband's heart surgeries, where the last two, thankfully, they didn't have to do open heart. They did through a vein through the groin. Well, they have to check the incision every so often. Of course, his mom's in the room too. Same thing. They just flap that shit right open, and he's like,
Charnell's running up there.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of looking at Linda, and Linda is doing her best. She suddenly just steps back by the bathroom, okay, I'm just.
So I have a funny story about that too, but that might be a crime, so I'll hold on.
Okay, well, let me read for you this story. A bungling urologist is under investigation for mistakenly amputating a patient's penis after he wrongfully diagnosed him with a tumor. The 30-year-old surgeon is accused of causing serious injury to an unnamed patient, thank goodness that they didn't name him, from a municipality of Arezzo in Italy, the Tuscany region. He performed the operation at San Donito Hospital in Arezzo on November 13th, 2018. This was after incorrectly diagnosing the patient, who is believed to be in his late 60s, a month earlier. The procedure was carried out without a hitch, but during analysis of the amputated member, it quickly transpired that there was no tumor. The devastated patient is now seeking compensation, I should say,
I would think so.
And a new penis.
Compensation? I just want my
Can you get a new penis?
I think, yes, I think you can get a new penis.
Can it be mechanical so we never have any issues? I mean, he's in his 60s.
Just like hit a button?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or an extender in the middle?
What would that sound like?
I don't know.
Just
like opening a garage door.
Go gadget.
Just
penis.
like hit a power button to release the dogs of war. I love
Every
that.
time the garage door opens now, I'm like, gotta go upstairs.
Or what's that like on cartoons? Ba-ding!
Yeah. I think
they have reattached penises.
Right.
they do.
John Bobbitt.
Right.
It doesn't say that they reattached any sort of members. No. It just says that he is seeking compensation, and
no, and it left him with just his testicles and no feeling where it once was. So they must have. You would think that they could remove a penis without damaging the nerves that attach it, so that you could do some type of an implant.
And you know
dude.
what? Where I said that he was in his late 60s, that was referring to the doctor.
Oh.
The man that this happened to was in his 30s.
Oh.
He still needs that.
He
There's
still needs
many
his
years
penis.
of good use.
For the record, men in their 60s also need theirs. The closer I get to that age, the more I would like those to continue to work.
I mean, I'm going to be 51 and I still like my penis.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would like to keep it.
I didn't mean to make it sound like that,
Right.
but you're
Like,
absolutely right.
Just because you're 60, you are in less need of a working penis than a
But I
30-year-old.
still want it.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just kind of meant maybe he still needed to have kids and whatnot.
Although it makes it a little easier to do the Silence of the Lambs tuck.
They cut it at the base, it says. He had just left the testicles and had cut at the base. Oh gosh. And apparently this has happened. Like, he's a bumbling surgeon. There was a similar case. Oh, in 2003. This is a different,
He cut off another dude's dick?
No, this was a different, looks like to be a similar case in 2003.
This one they cut everything off.
Oh, I don't think you can reattach the sac, too. An American man went into surgery in 2003 for cancer, but when he came around, his penis and testicles were gone.
My wife had to tell me.
Oh, no. Yeah. My wife had to.
So this is the
hold
brain
my
bath?
hand.
Not to interrupt, but this is horrible.
This
is This is traumatizing more than telling the story where I almost died.
That's a good point.
And it's not even my penis that got cut off, but this is horrible.
I actually thought it got reattached and everything was
yeah,
fine.
no,
But
it's not.
She has a history of making you feel worse
Yeah.
during a brain bath.
So now I feel worse. Thank you.
so sometimes I just skim articles, and then once I cold read them on the podcast, it turns darker.
I'm going to,
And I apologize. But yeah, I mean, let's hope he'll get financial compensation and everything was fine.
Do you think they make the little, like, they're like,
Just so y'all know, they've now taken out the raccoon penis bones and are playing with them.
like, I wonder how he gets the come hither motion.
No, I think it's just, well, I mean, you're going to be in this type of
It'd be like
emotion,
this?
right? 'Cause you're-
Is that your raccoon sexy voice?
That's my raccoon second voice. Like, I mean, it's the same
it
one.
makes sense.
That's the same one when they eat trash, or
That's true. They do kind of do that. That's a good
it's kind of
point.
like a.
I love that raccoons eating trash is what he equates to how they made as well.
Their sexy voice.
Well, I just think the things
We've
that,
all eaten trash before.
yeah, the things that make them happy, that's their happy noise.
Right.
I'll take that penis back. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much
Thank
for sharing
you.
your story.
It
And
was awesome.
we loved bringing more people in our life to the podcast so that they can it probably gives them perspective of the type of people we are as well by the type of people we hang out with.
There you go.
Oh God.
We are sorry.
Yes. So thanks again. And,
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.
and thank you all for listening. Follow us on social media. If you feel so inclined, you could join Patreon and get, the $10 a monthers get 5 bonus episodes a month. The
A brain bath only episode.
Yes, a Brain Bath only episode, which we are going to record this month with Wes and Jason.
Right.
Not Kangaroo Sack Jason, our friend
Our
Jason
friend
that
Jason.
you
Right,
know.
we call him friend
We
Jason.
call him Brain Bath Jason.
Brain bath.
Okay, gotcha.
Because then we also have husband Jason.
Right.
There's a lot of Jasons
There's a lot of
in our
Jasons.
life. Yep. And
It makes it easier for me, really. I could call all kinds of names out.
that's a good point. That's why I stick with the Matts.
You do.
You know, but anyway, so yes, feel free. There's lots of bonus content on there. I think there's actually like hundreds of episodes that you can binge if you joined Patreon. So that is patreon.com/crime curious, or the link that's in the show notes. So until next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You forgot.
Oh, I forgot to tell you to keep it curious. I'm fired. Until next time, keep it curious.
Fucking
and
rookie.
keep listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.